First, I want to say that I understand that our employees are frustrated. I understand that our parents are frustrated. I'm frustrated as well. We have been in a situation with COVID-19 that none of us could have ever envisioned. Over the last 2 years, we have dealt with ongoing changes, shifts, turns, uncertainties, unknowns, fears, as we try to live and we try to work during and in the midst of a pandemic. Birmingham City Schools has not been an exception to the pandemic. We are frustrated at those things that are beyond our control and the situations that we did not choose. However, I want you to know that we as a school system have taken extraordinary efforts to be proactive, to keep our schools open and protect our students, our faculty, and our families. As you know, in Birmingham City Schools, we require masks, and we continue to require masks to be worn in our schools and facilities every day. We provide PPE to our employees as well as our students. We have hosted vaccination clinics. We have established testing partnerships with UAB and continue to offer our employees 10 days of COVID leave, even as employers are shifting to the 5-day quarantines under the new guidance from the CDC. This is our board member, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, I recognize all the other board members. I want to make sure I recognize you as well. We continue to take COVID seriously as a system and as individuals. However, we must balance our COVID response against our mission, which is to educate our children and prepare them to succeed in life. The fact is that many of our students had challenges prior to the pandemic, and COVID has put them further behind. Simply stated, our students need to be in school. They cannot afford to be out of school. Everyone understands the importance of this, whether from the president to public health officials across the country and across the state. There's been broad agreement at every level that virtual education is not as effective as in-person teaching and learning. Virtual education also provides practical challenges for parents who don't have the luxury to work from home. That's the situation with many of the parents that we serve in Birmingham City Schools. And our teachers know better than most that parents play a critical role in the education of their children, but our children need their teachers. COVID-19 numbers are high across the state of Alabama. Many school systems are feeling the effects of the large surge. In Birmingham City Schools, our most recent numbers indicate that 468 students, or 2.2% of our student population, tested positive for COVID-19. We have 144 employees, roughly 5% of our workforce, who tested positive for COVID-19. Now, these numbers are updated weekly, and they will be reflected on our dashboard that we share on our website. In comparison, these numbers show our proactive measures are working to prevent or to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. More than 12,000 free COVID-19 tests have been administered in our schools since September. That number includes 9,697 student tests, 2,676 employee tests, and just in January alone, we had more than 3,500 tests administered. We had 284 students because of the testing to test positive, 81 adults to test positive. And as you can see, we're able to reduce the spread of COVID-19 by identifying those individuals who may be spreading COVID-19 asymptomatically, meaning they didn't know they had COVID until they did the free testing that we provide. Now, I can't promise that we won't isolate a classroom or some activity because of COVID-19 related issues. But our goal remains to keep Birmingham City Schools open and available for our children because they need to be in the classroom. We are open to hearing the concerns of our parents and our employees. In fact, tonight we have sessions for both parents and employees. I talked to Cheryl. I'm calling it a town hall meeting, but Cheryl said it's more of a listening and learning session. However, I don't want to leave any misconceptions. And let me pause for a second. Mr. Collins is also our board member representing District 1. I don't want to leave any misconceptions out there about what our system has done to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19 and will continue to do. We will take every precaution to prevent COVID-19 infections on our campus, and we will continue to work with our health department officials and listen to their guidance. Mrs. Watkins, she's also here, one of our board members, and we're very proud to have all of them here as we do this press conference. We will continue to be proactive by providing additional COVID-19 vaccination clinics. We will continue to work with our wonderful partners, the Jefferson County Health Department, the Alabama Regional Medical Service, UAB, and others to identify those individuals who are asymptomatic and spreading COVID and to prevent the spread and fight the COVID-19 virus. You know, I want to close by reminding everyone of our most important stakeholders and our greatest asset, our scholars in Birmingham City Schools. We are, as a superintendent, as a teacher, as a member of this district, we are blessed to have the opportunity to support, to educate, and to care for young people. We know that these individuals will be the leaders of our community. In Birmingham, we are thankful, even during the midst of this crisis, because every problem and every challenge that we've seen our employees, our students, and our parents rise to the occasion and do their very best in a very difficult situation. So much is happening now to ensure that our students have a bright future. Educating our children is a critical part of that future. So we stand ready as a system and individually to meet the challenges that this virus has for our school system and any other challenge that offsets our students in Birmingham City Schools. And with that said, we'll open it up for any questions that you might have.
Dr. Sullivan, thank you for your time today. Just wanted to ask if we could, do you have numbers of teachers who were out today, staff members as a whole who were out today across the system?
So I think what's important to note is that we had over 90% of our employees to show up today that are on the job, that are educating our students, that are driving our students to school, that are providing meals for our students, that are cleaning our classrooms for our students. So I want to take this moment to say thank you to all of our employees who came to work today, to showed up and showed out. And as I indicated, we had over 90% of our employees there. The exact number, I think right now we have, as I mentioned before, roughly about 150 so employees who are out on COVID leave, and probably another 200 employees who are out for some other reason.
Just being classified as sick out, we've heard that term a few times here today.
Well, I don't know anything about that. I know in the state of Alabama there are laws and rules that are around public education and what can and cannot be done as it relates to an employee. So all we know is that the employees, those individuals, other than the 90% who came out who were on the job today, they, for one reason or another, chose not to show up today.
Are you planning on making any changes based on the concerns and demands that those teachers brought up?
So absolutely. So some of the, clearly there are some opportunities, even with the individuals who, even if there's a small number of individuals who have concerns, I think that we as an organization have an obligation to hear our employees. And so we have been looking at some of the concerns and the issues that brought up, and some of them provide a little clarity. I know there were some concerns and issues around the numbers of individuals who are testing positive. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that our employees know is that we are being proactive in this effort because we are providing the tests that most of the individuals that we're identifying as being positive are being identified through the information that we're providing. So I think that we need to educate a little bit more. I think we need to listen a little bit more because, you know, I know that our employees are frustrated. You know, we are all frustrated in this pandemic. You know, whether you're a nurse or a teacher or a doctor or you're a cashier at a grocery store, you know, we are all affected by COVID-19. And I think that a lot of those concerns, a lot of those frustrations put people in a situation where they want to do something. And so what we want to do is we want to work with our employees to proactively address what their concerns are so that we can keep our students in school.
And exactly, you said it's important to keep the students in school. I've heard that some of the classes have been displaced and different classrooms have been around due to the teachers being out. Do you have any plans, even though it's important for them to be in school, to move to virtual or hybrid learning?
So based on the number of individuals who are positive, I think I indicated that we had about 2% of our students positive and roughly 5% of our employees. So that's 95% of our employees and over 90-something% of our students who are not positive. I think that when we weigh the benefits of in-person learning versus virtual or remote learning, I think that our students need to be in school. Last year, and we want to be as transparent as possible, last year we had many of our students in a virtual mode. 70% of the students who took our assessment last year in mathematics scored in a level 1. That's the lowest level that they have on a test. Virtual learning doesn't work. Nearly 40% of our students scored at the lowest level in reading. We need to do all that we can do to keep our students in school. That is why we're providing this testing. That is why we're providing vaccination clinics. That is why we're ensuring that masks be worn in our schools, because we know the importance of ensuring that our students are successful. And we cannot go 3 years without students having virtual learning, blended learning, and face-to-face learning. We have to make sure our children get back on track. Is that my fault?
Dr. Sullivan,
Yes, ma'am.
Is it true that there are so many teachers out of the classrooms right now that the district has asked for certified district team members to support the schools where those teachers are absent?
So that's absolutely true, because and that's not anything unique to Birmingham City Schools. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and school systems across the state are having shortages in substitutes. So everybody who is certificated are supporting the work in the schools. So if you're an instructional coach, or if you are a STEM coordinator, where we are going into the buildings and training teachers, we can go into the buildings and provide instruction for those students, because we know that our kids need to be in school. And so we have people who are here, who are ready to work, and I think that they need to be applauded for not only doing the work that they do at the central office of, but rolling up their sleeves and getting into classrooms and providing support. Because even beyond what the number of absences that we had today, we typically have quite a few, as I indicated, 150 people who are out for COVID. There may not be 150 people who are willing to volunteer or willing to be a substitute teacher and go in those classrooms. And we got people who are in central office who are qualified, who are certified, and who are ready. We want to put them in the classroom so our kids can have the best people providing them with the best instruction.
One of the concerns I'm hearing is that there are only 2 people being assigned to each school, and that's not enough.
So we have 43 schools, and we have a limited number of staff, but I'll tell you one of the great things about that is that some of our schools didn't have any absences. So those 2 people who were assigned those schools, they were sent to other schools. The vast majority of our schools had less than 5 people absent a day, other than what is associated with COVID. So we were able to move individuals, even though they were assigned to a school, to other schools where there were greater needs.
One other question, I've heard from some teachers who are concerned about there not being enough deep cleaning in the buildings. How is the district addressing that?
So let me start off by saying this. Our custodial staff, just like our lunchroom staff and our bus drivers, our teachers, they do a very good job, but they're human too. And so they sometimes get COVID, and so we have to do extra work to try to mitigate the absences of those custodians. I would say this: we are looking to provide some additional support for our custodial staff. I was in buildings today. I don't know how familiar you are with Birmingham City Schools, but if you walk into Parker High School, you can eat off the floor. I was over at Oxmoor Valley, and you can see yourself in the floor. But there are spots, there are places, there are classrooms, there are situations where there may be a custodian who is out ill, and we have to provide mitigation for that. But for us to say that that is a rampant thing, being in our schools don't show that to be true. But what we can do is we're making sure that it's a concern of our employees, and we're going to address that concern.
Dr. Sullivan, I appreciate this opportunity to provide some clarity here today. We had a couple of reports from parents that had said that they had to pick up children that may have been all gathered in gymnasiums at certain individual schools because there weren't enough teachers. Can you provide any clarity on
So the
that?
vast majority of our employees showed up today. I told you that over 90% of our employees. I know that at the beginning of the day, when individuals were trying to determine who would be there, who would not be there, they had to gather students in certain places. Some students, some schools, some parents decided to, before the process was put in place, to assign students to classrooms to adjust for absenteeism, may have decided to pick their children up, and that's the right of a parent.
Well, I did receive some pictures from Carver High School. A teacher sent them to me and said that they've been in the gymnasium all day. And some of them complain, like, we want in-person learning, but if they're not learning sitting in a gymnasium, what's the point of that?
So today, Carver High School is one of those areas where we saw a large number of absenteeism. And so we are working with our HR department to make sure that we have the substitutes to support Carver High School. I think that one day, in comparison to doing multiple days or weeks of virtual learning, that won't benefit our students, having our students at home on computers for weeks at a time as we did last year. All of the data tells us it doesn't work. So today was unique. It was different because of the circumstances. And so now we saw that Carver High School was one of those hotspot areas for us, and that is an area that we're going to try to address tomorrow with our HR department.
Union leaders also told me that there are some schools that don't have enough PPE. So
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that. We, as a school system and a school board, approved a large purchase of PPE. We have a department over at Lincoln where we have PPE from floor to ceiling. The PPE is delivered to schools on a weekly basis. It is ordered by principals, then it is sent to the schools. So, if there is any isolated situation where there are some issues with PPE, we are glad to address that. But for us to say, as a school system with 43 schools, 21,000 students, 3,000 employees, that we don't have PPE on a large scale is inaccurate.
what do you think of those teachers who are concerned, who are scared right now? There are so many staff members that are out. Also, I've been told that with them being in the gymnasium, they're also scared. Just being so grouped up and catching COVID and giving students COVID. What do you say to that?
So I would say this. We are all frightened because we're in a pandemic. I would also say that if we are looking to mitigate the spread of COVID, I think the last place that we need to look to close are our schools. When our children can go to the movie theater and watch Spider-Man shoulder to shoulder without a mask on, or our children can go to amusement parks or go to national championship games shoulder to shoulder, if we can have all of that open and our most valued and most treasured person, our students, have to sit at home while the whole world continues to operate, I think that there's a problem with that. I think that we need to do everything that we can to ensure that our schools are open. Because if everything else is open and schools are requiring masks, schools are following the guidance of the CDC and nothing else is, I wonder if these people are actually getting COVID, or these students maybe not getting COVID in these movie theaters, in these amusement parks, in these other places where the guidelines are not as stringent. And so if we had a choice, I would say let's keep the schools open and look at closing some other things to ensure that our children are properly educated.
But what about the teachers who are concerned?
So we and like I said, I understand their concerns. And initially, and we had one person who was our employee assistance person who worked with our teachers. We knew that wasn't enough. And thanks to the board, we approved to have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, support for our teachers. As I indicated, this is not normal. We're in a pandemic. In Birmingham City Schools, we saw 8 employees over the last 2 years to die from COVID. Our first employee was Miss Kennedy. She was a bus driver. Most of those funerals I went to. I stood there with the families. I stood there with board members who were there. I stood there with fellow employees. I know that this is a difficult time, but I think that if we do those mitigation efforts by ensuring that people are vaccinated, by testing people who are asymptomatic, by having, by requiring masks to be worn every day, I think that we can mitigate the spread of this. Can we eliminate it? No. But I think that educating our children is so worthwhile. It is so important that we don't have a generation of students who have a 3-year gap in their education. We have to do everything that we can to keep schools open.
Like you said, you want to keep schools open. Is there a magic number that?
So typically what we do is we look around 10%. So right now, even though we are not virtual as a school system, we have classes that have reached that 10% threshold. And so we put those classes on virtual. So we look at it school by school, because even though you may have a hot spot at a particular school, as I indicated, we have 21,000 students. So that what's happening at one school may not be the same situation at another school. And we are always open to ensure that our students are safe. So usually around 10% is where we are. Or if a school has a threshold where you're not able to adequately provide instruction for students, and that could be less than a 10%, or it could be a little bit more than a 10%.
Birmingham AFT is saying that we should expect more absences from teachers throughout the week. Have you been in conversation with them?
So I can't speak for AFT. All I can speak for are the students, the teachers and the students of the city of Birmingham who attend Birmingham City Schools. As I indicated, I'm extremely excited by the fact that over 90% of our employees showed up today. So that may be a question for Birmingham AFT.
What should parents expect going forward for the rest of the week?
So we have, like I said, we had 90% of our employees at school. I hope, I pray that we will have that continuation for the rest of the week. I know that it's important to ensure that our students are safe. I think that in Birmingham City Schools, we've been very proactive around COVID. Again, we have provided mask wearing, vaccinations, COVID testing. We've also done what we call COVID conversations, where last year, when we first started the process of vaccinating people, we did a survey out to our parents, and we wanted to know, what would be your apprehension to vaccination? We had 60% of our parents said that they would not want to get vaccinated themselves, nor did they want to have their children vaccinated. What that told us was, and we looked at some of the open-ended responses, and some of those responses were around, the vaccine hadn't been around long enough. They wanted to see what happens to somebody else. And then there were some other concerns that were a little bit more fringe. And so what that told us was that we had to provide information to our parents. So we worked with our technology department, our communications department, and we did COVID conversations with our parents so we can educate them around what COVID is and what it is not. But we wanted to make sure that our children were comfortable around that. So we also did COVID conversations with our students, led by our students. And then we did a COVID conversation with our employees. So I think in Birmingham City Schools, we are putting together those mitigation efforts so that we can keep kids in school.
What time are the listening sessions tonight?
Ms. Stewart?
5 o'clock for employees, 6:30 for parents.
Where?
It's virtual.
It's virtual. You can find the information on our website and social media.
Also, how many staff in total do you guys have?
We have around, a little less than 3,000, 2,700. All right, if there's not anything else, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it on short notice. Right.
Thank you.